good afternoon. Today we're going to be discussing a workshop that we ran in the weeks leading up to the symposium, the Monumentøclasm, or Mnημειøκλασίας in Greek, Anti-Colonial Imagination Workshop. This workshop was an experiment. It seems that it was a successful one, since you see the participants here today and you're going to hear from them. The idea, we had an open call, and the workshop had to do with looking at the decolonizing of monuments, the significance of defacements of monuments in the contemporary decolonial struggle, especially monuments of white supremacists, slave owners, and national heroes, so-called national heroes. And this workshop was convened by a working group that was formed also rather experimentally, people whom I knew, but then whom I met through other people. And so all of our conversations leading up to the workshop are a very important part of it. So basically over the past 3 weekends, we've been having conversations online and in person. Those conversations began on October 16th with an introduction on radicalizing remembrance. And I'd like to sort of introduce the people who are here, who are in the working group, to say the different topics that we worked on. The first workshop was on radicalizing remembrance, and it was an introduction to concepts and ideas. And I'm happy to have here Zήσης, do you want to say a word, who was helped me do that first weekend?
Yes, hello also from my side, and hello to everyone. So this was I would say the first kickoff online webinar. Excuse me, the microphone. Sorry. Okay, now it's better. Okay, so yeah, the first the first webinar that started at the 16th of October. There was a presentation from Professor Pαπaηλία, Pηνελόπη here on these notions of radicalizing remembrance, and also did an introduction to some theoretical concepts and what can we learn or unlearn perhaps from some new concepts of critical museum studies or some latest developments on this notion of interventions on material cultural heritage, or on these new calls or all these new demands from decolonial or social movements, and this notion of decolonizing museums or the collections or our memory work, our practices, the way we work, and so on. Then, Pηνελόπη, there was a discussion on next week. And so the next week we had, unfortunately not here today, George Manzios and Jean Ray. We had a discussion of defacement as a modality of decolonization, which is a more sort of anthropological critical theory approach. Then the following weekend, so the idea of having these discussions was sort of build a sort of bibliography, a toolkit, and from a multidisciplinary standpoint. Then the following weekend, we were hosted at Atopos Gallery, and we had a first presentation convened by Tom Western, who is with us on the Zoom, if we could connect to Tom, on sounding an anti-colonial Athens. So this was moved us away from a sort of visual emphasis on the monuments and very much into thinking about the city, or the city within the city, as Tom calls it. The collaboration was with groups active in the city. One group is here, the Aku Collective, with Dena Papachristo and Yoros Samandas and Sofia Grigoriado. So I don't know if you want to say hi. And from the Syrian and Youth Forum, Syrian and Greek Youth Forum, in which Tom is involved. Tom, do you want to connect to say hi to us from London?
I'm here. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Cool. Γεια σε όλες εκεί στο Βοτανικό. Και συγγνώμη που είμαι μακριά στο Λονδίνο. But yeah, thank you, Pηνελόπη, and congratulations for organizing this whole event. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago we ran a workshop on sounding in anti-colonial Athens. I didn't do most of the work. My colleagues in AKUO and the Syrian and Greek Youth Forum did most of the work. But the idea was to just engage this other sense, to see what happens when we put listening and sound first, and to think about how that opens up ways of hearing the city in different ways, thinking about its positioning on the Mediterranean and how there are shared sound cultures across and around other Mediterranean cities that take Athens away from being this sort of idea of a European city and sign and symbol, but also recognizing that sound has been a really important part of anti-colonial thought, certainly from Caribbean scholars who have played a central role in decolonial thinking and study. Sound plays a prominent role, so we wanted to kind of engage that a little bit. It was all experimental, as everything has been so far, but it was really fun. So thank you again for hosting it, and I'm excited to be here for this session too. Thanks.
So as part of that, so Tom also participated online from London, but we also had Karim Al-Kabani from the Greek and Youth the Syrian and Greek Youth Forum with us, as well as the Aku Collective. If you want to say hi and a word about we did some exercises in the city, Metaxurgio.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Just walking in a bit, just to be on shot. Hi, yeah, I see myself there. Yeah. So yeah, it was both a duplex thing. Well, how about pose a colonial question in terms of sound and listening in one hand, and sounding out as a counter-colonial strategy. So we kind of tuned in the city, we walked around, formed groups, and devised ways of grasping all this. Does colonialism has a timbre in terms of sound? Does it have a particular kind of volume? Or what are the aesthetics of it? And how can we sound out against or with? Or how do we devise strategies in terms of voicing out, performing, in regards and negotiation with this, all these complex structures and processes? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was great. It was great having you, you to have us, and thank you.
That was a very important moment for our group because it was the first time we met in person, some of us, and it was like a very beautiful sunny day in Metaxurgio when we were doing this. So I think this was an experiment in sort of a group of strangers coming together and becoming, I think, friends even, but colleagues, and sort of creating a space of exchange and conviviality, you'll see as we go on. So the following day, we saw Alexis Filidzi's exhibit on revolting bodies, which brought the issue more towards Greek history and issues of public histories, monuments, masculinity, violence of the nation. Alexis was in dialogue with Cynthia Malakasi, anthropologist, who's also with us on the Zoom. So maybe Cynthia can say hi. So we had a kind of open classroom in Alexis' gallery. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Do you want to say just hi? Oh, that's such a laconic hi.
I was going to say, do you want me to say a few words?
Yeah, yes, of course.
No, it was a fantastic workshop, and I'm very happy that I had the chance to engage with Alexis' work that really foregrounded the colonialist undertones of the Greek nationalist project in its beginnings, and it gave me the chance to reflect on the colonialist undertones and the colonialist type boundaries that are still trying to be sort of created in contemporary Greece vis-a-vis the migrants that have come to Greece in the past 2-3 decades, and the way the national past participates or is deployed in these debates. So I think that Alex's work was very illuminating toward this direction, and it gave us all the chance to reflect on these types of issues.
See that this is a very dominant theme in the Manifesto. Then the following weekend, we had the New York team of artists and architects, Jenny Marchetto, Olga Tulumi, and Julie Traganou, who formed quite an amazing trio. Their session was called Spaces of Engagement, Commons, Bodies, and Monuments, brought a feminist standpoint into the a perspective into the discussion, and focused a lot on bodies in public spaces, on the idea of commoning. Jenny's here with us today. Olga and Julia are in the US, so I think the time is too early for them to connect.
Thank you very much for giving me. It was a great privilege for me to be able, during that workshop, to share it with Olga. But also the first time that I engaged with the whole group, of course on Zoom, but I was able to do that from Hanya, where I was actually hands-on on a project in Yelizami, which is a mosque from 1625 in Hanya, in which I was addressing again the issue of how do we decolonize a monument with such a history, with a point of departure, the palimpsesto of a mosque. So thank you again for giving me this great opportunity to share it with you guys. Thank you again, and for meeting you in person today.
Jenny's presentation was especially resonant because she was in the mosque while speaking. Actually, it had a very interesting soundscape in there, and brought us back to some of the issues that Chris had brought up in the beginning about how can we make the monuments into like a spaces of community engagement, and think about the archives that are there that can be activated. So then the following day, we were hosted by Aktina Stathaki in her gallery, the 1927 art space in Kypseli, where the group met partially online again. It was very complicated, but we tried our best to create this, and some of those members are here. Maybe we could see them on the screen, who have been online the whole time, Diana and Iris, I think, are with us. And we started the project, which was to write a manifesto, which was Olga's idea, really. So we originally thought, after our first conversations, that we actually didn't have a common idea about what that manifesto would be, or that we could have enough common sort of points of connection for that manifesto to be written. But basically, in the week since then, the group has come together amazingly, writing day and night, and using the whole process of this collaborative writing to think through these differences of opinion or learn from each other. And I remember when the first iterations. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because we read it first. But the way that they became, the group came together through writing was really, I don't know, very touching and amazing for me. So I think, without further ado, could we just see Diana and Iris on the screen to say hi to us? Iris and... So now, yeah. Hi, Diana.
Hi, everybody. Very excited for the day. Yeah. We can't wait to hear you.
Yeah. And Iris, say hi. It's possible. So now what we're going to do is the group is going to present. There are 3 readers of the Manifesto. And then we want to leave it kind of free for the members of the now other collective, I want to call you guys. And I think another thing I would like to note, oh, wait a minute, Foteini. Foteini, because I don't have you on the list here, the sessions. Foteini, Guseti, first, say hi. Who was at the session of writing the Manifesto with us, but this was taking on the whole idea of like how, because the idea of the workshop is that we're going to try and design an action afterwards. So Foteini is our like, whatever, conceptual guru. Who's an artist and is more, does both anthropology and art, so you're our bridge. Do you want to say hi?
Hello. I'm very happy that things came into this point and we are ready to read our manifesto.
Yeah, so I think, like, I just wanted to say before is that the groups, the sort of the working group and the participants are merging, and I hope that in the end it just becomes one group of people who may want to continue with this and try to break down these hierarchies. That's why I see you as part of the group here, Fotini. So I think without further ado, we can read the manifesto, and then members of the group can just talk about their experience, the people who feel comfortable in speaking on this televisual kind of space, and then we can take some questions if we still have time.
We are a group of friends, strangers, teachers, students, civil servants, unemployed, expats, exiles, migrants, human rights lawyers, artists, and bastards of the diaspora living through an ongoing pandemic. We acknowledge our various positions and privileges in the space where we find ourselves. We recognize the myriad violences of colonialism, the theft of land, the destruction of culture, the genocide of Black and Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that we are all byproducts of colonialism. We have come together in Athens to think and talk about the defacement of public monuments honoring white supremacists, slave owners, colonial invaders, and supposed national heroes today. In this moment of displacements and pushbacks, raising border walls, police murder, exploited labor, femicides, racism, religious discrimination, homophobia, precarity, the plunder of the commons, the destruction of public infrastructures, we feel a sense of urgency.
There is a lot about monuments in Greece that unsettle us and provoke us. Greece has been made a monument of for the West. It has been entangled in heteronormative, patriarchal, dominant fantasies and used to justify slavery and genocide. Hellas is a pillar of whiteness used as a material proof differentiating the civilized West from the uncivilized other. Hellas is a myth made real, realized through social exclusion and political negation. Greece has been a digging site for artifacts of the West's selective history. Today, it is a site of graves of those violently excluded from European spaces and citizenships. We want to draw attention to the lives that were not allowed to be lived. We want to unsettle and provoke monumentalities.
The 2000th celebration of the Greek Revolution has directed attention to monumentality. We want to turn monuments against the nation, to connect local and diasporic histories and geographies. We want to bring forth pluralities. We choose to reclaim the public space that monuments occupy, creating new synergies through our streets, our cities, our narrations, our senses of belonging. We want to use monuments as a method. We see them as a thread among peoples, connecting struggles. We want to reveal the stories and bodies under the hooves of the heroes that dominate public space. We want to open up what defacement could be.
That's the manifesto. Bravo, guys. I don't know if you clap for a manifesto, but it's quite an amazing moment to hear it after seeing how it came together, and how you came together by writing it. So would anybody from the group like to say something about the experience, or?
Any comments from the...
Oh, there are comments. Okay.
So let's see if there are comments on regarding the manifesto. I think the comment, I think it has to do with the... maybe I read it, right? As an Italian, I want to thank you so much. So it's for Iasonas for the previous. Oh, sorry. But maybe we do not. If anyone, thank you. If anyone else wanted to add on or reflect on the whole experience of writing or co-writing the manifesto, if it's okay to start, I would start with it. Or for me, I think it was we sort of experienced the challenges and possibilities, but also difficulties of being together or co-writing or co-creating and being part of a co-creative experience on, co-writing and struggling to find our, common ground and connections and associations, but also I think at the same time sort of critiquing or doubting our own epistemologies and the methods or the methodological ways that we, see reality or see the complexity of social reality, but also our work as either, in the academy or in the arts or as activists and so on. So for me already the process of not only participating, of course, in the webinars, but like the actual get-togetherness of us, especially the last days, like trying really to, every sense, every bit of the manifesto to co-write it together, I think, it is an enriching experience that it shows, what I said before, the challenges and possibilities of a collaborative, process of writing a manifesto. And the last note is that, from my side, is that I think we shared our common discomfort or our unsettling what was read on the manifesto. Like we try to really discuss and exchange opinions and ideas with mutual respect, without any power hierarchies or descending tones, or with mutual respect. I think we create a safe space actually, and I think that's also very important. Lending this from the anti-discrimination and anti-racist work that we created, I think we managed to create a safe space on exchanging ideas and opinions, discussing, disagreeing, critiquing our, as I said, the way that we work, or we try to work, or we try to change the world, or to achieve a sense of a paradigm in our memory or in our work. And so safe space, I think, important that we did that. And as I said, this experience of co-creating, really being together. It was mentioned in the manifesto, togetherness, and it was mentioned in all of I had noted down many times in my field notes, this, being there together and thinking about it and discussing about it, and I feel that was a, enriching moment. Who would like to share also?
Yeah,
I hope I didn't speak too much. Who would like to share reflections?
So we've created a manifesto together, and we're in ongoing conversation about what actions, other actions could be involved in our communications. For example, the monuments talking to each other. What would they say to themselves or to each other these days?
I think that by losing authorship and by creating this space of merging together and questioning ourselves as individuals, contributing, coming together, thinking together, and working together, we also have these individual moments of understanding what brought us into this field of thought and action, and then reworking on it in a group manner. So for me, it was personally a very fruitful process that moved me a lot in order to try to find my personal vocabulary and bringing it together with other vocabularies and making a common vocabulary that's already the beginning, I believe, to understand my feelings and thoughts that already kept me busy the latest, at least 6-7 years, but didn't have the chance to make them happen somehow. Being Greek, it's a very challenging identity, especially while living abroad, traveling around and being questioned, being criticized, being bullied. I could never answer why I was so angry for my position and so not comfortable in my own country. So for me, it's a very important moment of starting, realizing my place among others in a very, meaningful manner, according to my perception. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit about how we learned how to recognize these monuments and what they really mean, and what they mean to us and what they mean to this moment of that we are living right now in 2021, where we have been having this conversation about taking down monuments of defacement, and we didn't see any of that in Greece, and that this is what brought us together, like why we don't have any sense of I don't know how to explain that.
I think you explained it.
Yeah, I think I exactly explained what we did here. Yeah.
Siavesh.
First of all, thank you from everybody, and thank you for this great opportunity. It's been 4 years that I'm living in Greece. I have been displaced twice, from Iran to Turkey and from Turkey to Greece, and this was an opportunity that I found it when the first time I heard about this project, what is here that I can learn from it. And the most important thing was that this knowledge and creating knowledge actually among of this project, and that was really great for me. In these years, I tried many times to involve myself with activities, being a part of this society, these communities in Greece, and I think, as we mentioned it also in the manifest, what is gathered all of us, what brought all of us here, it was this need of creating a space, a time that we are facing it in this difficulty, this situation that they are creating it for us, and making a self-criticize about what we are facing it in our societies everywhere. For me, it was really, again, great experience for learning and sharing different knowledge between activists, between academicians, and it was great, actually. And I think, as we had it also in our workshop about hearing the voice, this is very important that we are creating a space that we can hear the voices that maybe, I mean, they exist, of course, in the societies, but maybe they are not allowed or it's not possible to be here. And this is very important. And I really I want to say thank you, and also I met many great people. I'm happy about it, that I found new friends also here, and that's great for me. Thank you.
Oh, Edie. Anybody else? Anna, you want to speak from there? No? Sharon, no? Everybody's hiding the rest. Jenny, do you want to, you said you wanted to make a comment? Yeah. Here, take.
It's very interesting that I didn't participate in writing the manifesto. So I will raise a question. Since we talk about decolonizing, and we discuss and we address the issue, and if I remember the issue of decolonizing knowledge, it's very interesting to me that why did you decide to go back with the idea of writing a manifesto instead of finding another way of expressing your position or ideas? I mean, writing has a very strong, I would say, I hate to use the word patriarchal, but it has a very strong connotation. I write something. It has a voice, it has a power, it's empowering. So how do we go, I mean, and we know historically manifestos have been always used by artists, by groups, by collectives, by everything. So my question is, why writing a manifesto?
Should we collect questions first, or comments, or?
Yeah, I just was curious. Why do we go back into writing a manifesto?
I think I could. I mean, in a way, it was maybe not that well thought out, for one thing. But on the other hand, there was something about, we played a lot with the sort of concept of manifesting. Like this, in a way, gave us a way to make our present our voice. So there was a way in which the concept of a sort of public text, it helped us the idea also of a kind of this sort of short text. It was very hard, actually. We had like 5-6 page document, very academic discourse. So the idea of the we had looked at like some older, we had a sort of little Google Drive with other manifestos. So I feel like there was something about the form that actually was enabling, but I definitely take your point, and I think the group itself is already beyond that. Does anybody want to talk about the idea of the trikakia, which in a way is already, you know, problematizing the manifesto in terms of being, does anybody want to talk about that idea? Because as we were doing the manifesto, there emerged an idea to sort of do an action with the manifesto in the form of trikakia, which would have to be much more condensed in their text, and then it would be maybe putting them on monuments, if I understand what the group was thinking of, and it would have to be more visual, and it would have to be a different kind of, like it would be some, obviously be language. I mean, I think the group also felt, it came up often that we need to explain some things, so, because things aren't like, that it was important to have a language to explain some things that is not, we had to work it through ourselves some point. So I'm not sure if they were beyond language, but I think there was a move to something more performative. Does anybody want to talk about that idea of the trikakia?
Not about trikakia, but a bit about the question, because I think it's important. I think like having a manifesto, it's putting out what we want, and this is what we are doing in our what do we want to do about all of this issue of monuments and of colonization in Greece. So we are putting out our word first, and with our words, we are also, that we want to do, we also want to act. So we are going a bit further away. We're not only doing an academic work here. We're not writing an article or something. We're writing a manifesto. We are putting what we believe in there, what we believe we understand that things should be, and we want to act upon that. So we want to do something on monuments, of course, like activism, as an interventions. We want to do more. It's not going. I don't think it's going to end here, and I think this is the meaning.
Could we have Iris on the screen? And if anybody else wants to answer that, because I think it's a very, very useful question.
Let's hear Iris first.
Who was very, very active from, where, you're in England now, right? I can't remember where you are, in Iris? Where are you located now?
I'm in Spain right now.
In Spain, right. So was very, very active from a distance in writing this manifesto. And I'm actually curious how you think it came out now, the final version.
Well, I mean, there's many things to discuss here, I guess, but I'll go back to what you were talking about language, about writing the manifesto. I think one thing that it did is that it problematized us in that it was too rigid, right, to write, and to write from many different positionalities. Because of course, when we're talking about monumentality, we come from different places, and we each had a different thing that we wanted to focus on. So we would each write a very different manifesto if we wrote it by ourselves. And I think this was really important in writing because it revealed the problem with the written we, which is also something that comes up in De Sousa Santos's approach, right? The monumentalized knowledge of writing. So by trying to write that we realized that on the one hand, we have a vocabulary that we're all using in order to communicate and act together and connect these different struggles. On the other hand, using this vocabulary as a written word makes it difficult to go further because then there's no way to position each other from where we're coming from, right? To have a very situated approach to what we're each talking about. So in that way, the manifesto was really fruitful because in the different things that we would do differently, we kind of found a way to communicate through it. And I mean, this also connects to what Yael Yashin had talked about, Yael Navarro, sorry, talked about yesterday, about the imported frameworks, right? Decolonizing as an imported framework. How can we keep our situated knowledges in a decolonial and feminist perspective when we're already talking through a language that's imported? I think all of these things came up when we were writing, and this helped us find, the problems within these approaches, and it helped us say that, to complete a text seems restricting to our multiplicities. And because we stand against rigidity by exclusion, which we find in monumentalizing practices, we also wanted to have this sense of that we don't have a teleology by writing a manifesto. It's just an opening into finding some common words in order to then be able to act. I think. Just some thoughts there.
Oh yeah, the Trikakya and the translations too, somebody afterwards, yeah.
We've started on the translation into multiple languages, so we're very aware of the English privilege that's entailed in the manifesto reading, but again, it's in the process of being translated, and as an action, we are talking about making certain, what do you call them, trikakya in Greek, flyers that are distributed in the streets and elsewhere as a way of engaging the streets in general and the public and other actions. And again, so much of the manifesto, going back to Jenny's question, I think was the process, was the really humbling ourselves It's a very artistic, I think, methodology, and this is just one part of it, the reading itself.
I don't know if there's any questions or from anybody else. We have just a few minutes left. Does anybody want to say anything about ideas for actions that have been coming up in the group, or is that premature? Nobody wants to get on the record. Yeah?
No, I think, I mean, just to add, I think that we said, in agreeing, of course, with all the comrades here and brothers and sisters, that we set the first ground, like, that's how I feel it, like sorry for the shift of language, but we planted some, seeds, and then I think what matters and what we should do, and that we were discussing that all the time, is how to design an action, so not stay on the theoretical manifesto and judging our, I don't know, epistemologies or our methodologies, which we did, I think, in a very creative and, I would say, challenging way, but also design an action. Okay, and what would that action would be? It's the new question, the point of discussion. We also talked, I think, I mean, I can mention that we had the discussion also, Geli, who was not here, but we would like to thank her also for the translation
into Greek.
As everyone, with the online. And
Sharon has translated into Arabic.
Yeah. I think that, we also discussed about, I mean, Daniela mentioned now this talk about the Trikakia, the flyers. We also talked about perhaps after doing research, or collaborative research, perhaps on, I don't know, film projections, on, I don't know, marginalized histories, on a monument, so film screenings, film projections, or archival photos. So I think there are myriad of ways we can also learn from other brothers and sisters from all these global movements of judging and critiquing monuments and monumentality. And I think that would be, hopefully, I think that would be our next step, to really design concretely an action. If anyone else wants to add.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Do you have a mic? Or something?
You have a mic?
Yeah, okay. Or I don't need a mic.
I don't know. It tends to me that maybe we should start thinking. I mean, all our life is organized by protocols, correct? So maybe thinking about an action, we should think about how can we challenge the protocols of our life. And I think by doing so, maybe we can find a more, I hate to use that way, contemporary, because it doesn't exist, to use something looking into the past, the present, but we should look into the future. And I think what we should change and look is our protocols. And this is how we can decolonize our life, everything that you mentioned in your manifesto. That's my idea and my suggestion.
I think that's like a very key energy that's come out of this group, that this is about making a more fair and inclusive future. Like, it's not just about reading the past. And I just like to underline how much we've learned from, and since we're going to have to segue into the next panel, which is about art, is how much I've learned from the artists on the team about sort of, you know, kind of how to get it more into like a public engagement sphere and think critically about, you know, what is performance or what is a manifesto. That we're having this conversation. Like, for me, this has been a very, and I hope for the others in the group, like this meeting of interdisciplinarity, because in this group, since we haven't met everybody, we have basically every possible kind of, not every possible, but many different backgrounds of, and fields. But I think particularly, I'd like to thank the artists in this group, because they know how to do these things. So, and I think in terms of the actions, like I really, that, you know, when we say what do we have to do, we don't have to do anything. It's like, you know, this is not class. This is if it works. Like, so I think it's really more just about the energy. Like, what's this going to go to the next thing, and you know, people can do things, have more time to commit to this, but I think there's something just amazingly organic that's come out of this group. And yeah, I also think like the protocol, like we have to have a paradoteo or something, like we have to deliver something. Wait, where's the lectura from Rosa Luxemburg now? We don't have to deliver anything, like literally we've delivered it right now. So we don't have to like feel like, yeah, there's some sort of any must. It's a want. Yeah, you want to say it? So
actually, during all of the workshop and conversation and writing the manifesto, it wasn't easy, of course, writing this manifesto. I mean, it was long and everybody went have a different idea. But I want to refer to one of my incidents that I was involved in, and I use it many times as an experience. Mm-hmm. When you are in action, when you are in a street and you have to organize something and you have to respond to one problem and an issue, of course you will bring a paper and your pen and you start to write that's what is the problem, and everybody, they say it, how they think, what they want, and what is need to be answered. That's not a manifest, of course, but this is something that we archive it and we start to think about it and what is going on here. I think here we created a language, something it's creating here, that it's allowed us to develop it more. And this was more important for me. I mean, anything we want to call it, I mean, like manifest or platform or whatever, but this is something that it's allowed us to think more and talk more about it. I think this is for me at least, this was very important in this time.
So I think that's a great place to end. I think this is our time is up. Just want to thank everybody. Just give ourselves a hand.